I couldn't lose the giggle. I'm sorry.
Here we go again.
This is what's gonna happen.
This is gonna be a great conversation.
It is.
Get out of here. Hey friends, welcome to the Field Guide to Healing podcast. It is a podcast dedicated to self-discovery, personal growth, and the power of transformative conversations. We are your hosts, Ronnie.
And I'm Jen.
And each week we will embark on soulful explorations into the paths of healing.
Join us as we share profound insights from our experiences, the community, touching reflections, and practical tools to guide you on your healing journey.
Whatever it might be that you're seeking, whether it's clarity, connection, or that spark of reflection, you have found your sanctuary here. So let's dive in.
Today we're going to be talking about intuition in this one-of-a-kind episode, Field Guide to Intuition, with our special guest, Miriam Grace.
Hi. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
Before we, hop into this conversation, I want to give a little introduction. So very briefly, or maybe not, Miriam is the co-founder of a local studio, Mud and Lotus Yoga Center in Philadelphia. Miriam is also a trauma-informed yoga therapist and yoga teacher in Philadelphia, and she helps people cultivate loving and intuitive connections with their whole selves, with their yoga, their meditation, any pranayama and breath practices, sound bowl, mantra, rituals, wonderful lunar circles. You got to go to them. Full moon circle, once a month, got to be there. And intuitive movement. Outside of studio life, she works at a partial hospitalization program as a yoga therapist, and she is serving those with co-occurring disorders in recovery for substance use. So with that being said, I want to give Miriam just a little bit of an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about what she does.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's such a beautiful experience. Ronnie actually teaches at the studio at Mud and Lotus Yoga Center. So this is like the crossover episode,
Literally.
Which I'm really, really thrilled about. And so it's wonderful to be here, not only with Ronnie, but also with Jen. So thank you both. And as a yoga therapist, I specialize in trauma-informed language, bodily autonomy, and I span the care of children, tweens, teens, and adults, but I tend to specialize in the care of like minors and women. Yeah. But anyone who steps into my services will benefit, right? But my yoga practice began when I was very small. I myself am a survivor of childhood DV. And when my mom and I were fleeing that situation, I was about 8 years old. We luckily were put in the hands of a holistic verbal process therapist who had connections to yoga spaces. And so through our own holistic and healing journey, we were recommended yoga, breath connection, and mindfulness to help facilitate our own healing and the regaining of our bodily autonomy. And like developing or not even developing, but like redeveloping and reconnecting with ourselves. Yeah. So to be a yoga therapist is really full circle for me, and to give back to the community is also really full circle for me.
With that being said, as someone who began practicing at such a young age, you have, firsthand experience using intuitive practices for personal growth and recovery. So with that, I am just going to kind of preface this and say that Miriam does have unique insight into how to support people in developing their intuition and healing in both themselves and for self-discovery. So that's why we wanted to bring her on today to talk about intuition.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm so grateful. I'm so honored that you're in this space with us. It feels so good and so right that you're our first guest. And I'm really looking forward to what we can create together out of this conversation.
Me too.
Yeah. And also going to preface this just like letting everyone know we are all friends off camera.
Yeah.
So like, we might be, Jen and myself as we are normally, plus an additional little friend. But I think we have something special before we dive into this topic today from our lovely Jen. What do you have prepared for us?
Yeah, so intuition is one of those words where everyone's like, oh, I know what that is. And then when you think about it deeper, maybe there's some disconnect. You're not really sure. And for whatever reason, it can be hard to connect to what your inner voice, your inner knowing is saying. For some people, it can be hard to believe that you have one, hard to know if it's right. So I thought it'd be helpful for us just to settle into the space together, settle into the next hour of conversation with a 90-second meditation to help us get to hopefully where we're trying to go.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So we're just going to start by inhaling and exhaling at our natural pace.
I'm just going to give us a nice little
tone. Cue us in there.
Yeah, let's just drop in a little bit, y'all.
So as we're breathing in and out at our natural pace, start to see how your mind and your body feels. And begin to inhale slowly through your nose when it feels right, if you feel ready. And heavily exhale out of your mouth. Pause after the exhale to allow yourself to experience stillness. Take 3 more of these cleansing breaths. Return your breathing pace to a natural rhythm. And if you have not already, you can close your eyes and turn your gaze inward. Notice where your awareness goes when your eyes are closed, gaze is inward, and your breathing is centered. Is there something that your body wants you to know? Is there an invitation to listen? Or images showing themselves to you? Notice the sensations, images, invitations, if there are any, and hold them by placing a hand over your heart. Inhaling deeply and exhaling out of your mouth this time through pursed lips. Let's set an intention together to give ourselves the chance to listen to what our intuition might be trying to say. Okay. Did y'all receive any messages? Any invitations?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I was having this conversation with Ronnie on Sunday about messages and receiving them in the quiet or the stillness, or when you are purposely unplugging. And so a conversation that I had with Ronnie on Sunday was about when I go on nature walks or walks outside, I try to go without my headphones so that I am not constantly receiving information, right? I believe that we live in a world where we are always inundated, right? Is that the right word?
Inundated.
Yeah, inundated, right? With information. And so to be outside or to be in any space, right? Without your screen in front of you or without your headphones on, and you don't always have to be plugging in that way. And when we disconnect like that, when we unplug from everything else, we are able to then plug into ourselves. And so a message that I received on Sunday, I was outside and it was just I'm actually walking through Laurel Hill Cemetery, which doubles as an arboretum because it partners with Morris Arboretum in the area. So there's beautiful trees and nature and wildlife. And I'm walking and I'm just talking to the trees, and then I'm quiet, and in my head and in my heart, all I hear is tend to your altar. tend to your altar. And I don't mean like religious affiliation altar, right? I'm the last person to talk about specific religious affiliations, but it gave me like pause. And so as we're meditating here, it came up again, like tend to your altar. And like, what does that mean? Right? Like, what does that mean to tend to your altar? And I was having this conversation with Ronnie on Sunday, and I'm down to chat about it now too. But I was thinking to myself, like, what is my altar? Like, is it my legitimate altar where I keep my candles and my meditation books and my tarot cards? Mm-hmm. Is my altar my body? Is my altar my home? Is my altar my career path? Like, what does it mean to tend to
it's also
your
so
altar?
Interesting that you say that, like, because in like a religious context in Christianity specifically, they talk about your body being a temple. And how like I feel like that is so reverent.
Yeah.
And how often are we actually treating ourselves as though we're sacred?
Right. So what message came up for me in this brief meditation? Again, the phrase tend to your altar. My personal experience with meditation and intuition is that it's very phrase heavy and it's very imagery heavy. When I meditate, I always see imagery of whales constantly. And that's just something that comes up. That's just like every day, like run of the mill day. If I know that I'm going to meditate, I'm going to see whale imagery, and that's just part of it.
Wow.
Miriam's also a Cancer, for those of you who don't know. So like water sign, loves the beach. So very in alignment for those of us who know.
Wait, that's really funny because I'm a Taurus. So like earth sign, right?
Earthy, yeah.
Yeah, whenever I do like a nidra, so like really, really deep, intense meditation, I'm on like a piece of earth that like jumps into orbit. Like I leave Earth. Just interesting.
And mine's an air sign, so mine's always very like sky and like wispy and like astral almost.
Cool. So awesome. But yeah, to circle right back, like what messages came up tonight, it's tend to your altar for me. And that's just been a theme since
So maybe you still have tending to do.
I clearly still have tending to do.
I thought you were done.
I'm not done. We're never done.
We're never done.
We're never done. But clearly I must tend to my altar still.
Ron, how about you?
So I didn't have like necessarily any phrases coming to mind, but like similarly I had some imagery of, you know, indescript beings in like this like starry place, and almost like these like radiant sparklish kind of, I don't want to say beam because beam feels too concrete, but like almost like stardust, I guess would be a more appropriate term, of like this almost spiral of stardust of all them coming together. So I think that's kind of the vision I was getting, the imagery I was getting. And to me, that's just, I read that as almost an affirmation of what we're doing right now, of this magic that we're making, this stardust that we're starting to like weave together.
Stirring up the stardust.
Yeah, making our own little constellation. So yeah, that's what came to my mind. What about you, Jen?
Nice. For me, so of course, like I do get a lot of visuals, but my strongest form for my intuition is the feeling sensations. So my eyes were open the whole time. So I really had like a strong sense in my heart when it came time to setting the intention together to like listen to what our intuition is going to be saying. And my heart was just radiating towards the two of you, even virtually. So it's telling me, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. So with that, I think this is a great place to transition into intuition, and just connecting it to our last episode or last conversation, the bravery to listen to our intuition, because we were talking about trust. Like, how can I trust myself? How do I know if it's right? So within the bravery piece, the other side of that too, and this is just my own experiencing from like what I see with the people I work with and with my own life experiences and things that I've read. So my bias, we have bravery to listen because we're feeling afraid of it, but also then there's that shame. So having the self-compassion to give our inner voice a chance. Am I sparking anything for either of you here?
I see a smile.
I think I really relate to the whole idea of bravery to listen. I do think that in the society and the world that we live in, there's just a lot of messaging around trusting other things that are not you.
Yeah.
Like,
Say more.
This might sound like slightly controversial, but this is just what comes up for me. Like, we can't be trusted to figure out how to move our bodies in the way that we want. So we have to go somewhere or hire someone to tell us how to move our body, right? We maybe can't be trusted to have or create our own schedule. So we have this society and construct that was literally taught into us from when we were very young. School bell goes off at 8 a.m., lunch happens at noon, or nap time when you're small happens at these times, right? And then your day ends at this time. And I do think that we live in a world that has almost like baked the trust out of ourselves because of all of these systems that are in place. And I think that there are positives to having these structures in place, but I do think that intuition is something that is unstructured, right? Intuition is something that is organic. It's something that is fluid. It's something that is innate, and in my opinion, it doesn't come with structure. And so we're living in a world. We're living in a world with a lot of structure. And then when we ask someone like, hey, listen to yourself, be brave and listen to yourself. And you're like, well, how do I do that? I need structure.
How do I be brave?
How do I be brave to do that? Because everything else around me is structured and everything else tells me how to do and what to do. And there is no structure to this. And so I think bravery is big because it's uncomfortable, right? To listen to yourself because there's no map.
Yeah.
There's no map to it.
There's no field guide.
There's no field guide. There's no field guide.
Yeah.
And so that's what comes up in my head.
What you're saying right now,
so many things.
Really quick, I can't be trusted is the message that's been internalized.
Right.
I must conform is the answer. So if I am to be trusted, you said the word unstructured, and that right there for me, I was like, light bulb moment. Does that mean that my ability to trust myself can be an unstructured, unpredictable thing?
Exactly. Like in my head, like, yeah, I feel like your intuition is something that does not fit into a box, right? It doesn't come with a directions. It doesn't come with a field guide, right? It doesn't come with any of that. And so when we ask people to connect with their intuition and connect with their innermost knowing, we are asking them to be unstructured. And that is very scary for a lot of people because we now live in the age of Google Calendar where everything is clocked to the minute. Like every single thing that we do is clocked to the minute.
This makes me like think of a couple things as well, as you say, like it's unstructured and it's like this part of this trust being baked out of us, this self-distrust that is societally pushed or, constructed. And it makes me think like, oh, why not? Why couldn't there be a guide on this? Like intentionally there isn't. And not a guide in the sense of like a box, but like a guide in the sense of here's how you might tap in. Like coming back to that primal force, because it's like it's divine, it's in us,
it's innate.
So it's like how to begin differentiating between intuitive sensation versus like fear versus like trauma response. Like I think you can get really nitty gritty here, but something what you said about it being abstract really hits. It's we're trying to tame this wild, free thing, and it's primal. Like that keeps coming back.
Well, it's called your sixth sense for a reason, right? Like you wouldn't try to put your sight, your touch, your hearing, your smell, and your taste in a box. Why are you going to try and put your intuition in a box? Like you just wouldn't. Yeah. Like why would you try to put those five senses? Why would you try to smush them into some type of rigid structure?
Well, let's lean into that. Why would we try to do that?
Well, I think A good example would be like when I thought about in college cleaning out that nasty ass fridge, the shared fridge, when it was time to move out.
Oh yeah.
You want to not smell that. You do want to limit certain senses. If you're feeling overstimulated, you do want to find a way to reduce any form of stimulation. Maybe like your vision, you want to turn the lights off, or you want to take off that scratchy sweater. So we do these things as a mechanism to protect ourselves, to help us reestablish feelings of safety, which is also where our intuition a lot of times gets snuffed out. I was in a training this week with Janiyah Fisher, and it's so interesting. They're a trauma expert, and she said there's a myth that we need to bust. If you're a trauma survivor, you can't trust your gut. And we can bust that myth. And I think the way that we can do that is by, using the data, right? Like turning our prefrontal cortex back on, all that kind of stuff. Really what that means is getting in touch with yourself, getting your brain back online, getting your emotions back online, getting your truth in the present moment back to a functioning place. But I do have a question for Miriam that I wrote down that actually relates to this. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, always.
Awesome. Okay.
Surprise.
Literally always.
How would you navigate helping someone who has a phobia towards their emotions and their intuition, who does not know how to approach them, let alone listen to and trust them?
Yeah. So I just want to preface this by saying I can only speak from a yoga therapy perspective, right? Yeah. So everything I'm about to say is going to have some type of yogic, Eastern healing, holistic spin on it. If someone has a phobia of, correct me if I'm wrong, what you just said, basically like a phobia of feeling their feelings, a phobia of sitting with their feelings, and they don't even know where to begin, right? To get in touch with their inner knowing. My very first instinct as a yoga therapist is to attempt to put them in their body. My very first instinct is, well, let's start on the layer that is the most physical. Right? In yoga therapy, we have a saying that says the issue is in the tissue. And where if we do not, the theory is if we do not process or handle or move through whatever it is we're going through in our lives, those experiences can affect the tissue, right? Can
everything.
Affect the body.
Yeah.
And it can affect everything. And it's a ripple effect. So my first instinct is to literally put someone in their body and to move them through. If I'm thinking of like a standard individual session for yoga therapy, they tend to be about 90 minutes long, just because there's a lot of modalities that we can tap into. Within those 90 minutes, probably the majority of that is going to be spent in grounded, restoration-based postures where we are just having casual conversation back and forth. Like,
I have experienced a taste of Miriam's yoga therapy. So like as someone who has literally, she put me into, I believe, boat pose, supported boat pose, and then just talked to me while I was in it. Yeah, it was very nice.
So like that is just step one. Like, can I ask this person to be in a posture that allows their body to soften, right? And in order for their body to soften, once we have a soft body, we have an open body. Right? When we have a soft body, we have an open body. If the body is open, then we can dive in deeper. If we can dive in deeper, then we can understand and like start to really unpack things. But I can't do any of that. We can't do any of that if you are so wrapped up tight. And so my first instinct, Jen, is to put someone in a restorative based posture, typically with a lot of blocks and blankets and bolsters, and just start to have a casual conversation back and forth, to get them to just ground with me and into the present moment. And typically as that conversation comes on, shit starts to bubble up to the surface. And then I get to learn more of why they're actually in front of me.
Wow.
Because once we have that softened, opened body, then like, how do I say? Addressing someone's fear of feeling things is much easier to do if they're physically comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? So like it's different if we're sitting in a chair like this and I'm like, yeah, tell me why you're scared of your fucking feelings, right?
Yeah.
But then it's completely different for me to ask the person to lay down and put blankets over them and pillows under their knees and then have a general pleasantries conversation and then ask them, hey, so like, how does it feel to be in this posture? They're like, it actually feels really good. I'm like, tell me more about that. Like, why does it feel good? Like, well, it feels like this and it feels like this and it feels like this. And like my chronic pain has lowered. And I'm like, okay, great. Tell me how it feels like emotionally to be here. They're like, safe for the first time in a long time. Right. So that, I hope that I answered your question, but that's my,
absolutely.
Yeah.
You're like fast tracking the trauma therapy practice.
Yeah.
It's amazing because it takes so much time to, when you're doing this in front of others, when you need a witness with you, it can be so hard to even get to the point of feeling safe enough in a new space if you travel somewhere to go to therapy, for talk therapy. And then feeling comfortable enough to even make eye contact with the person as you're sharing all of your truth is exactly like you said. It's not like it's a harsh confrontation, like, tell me how you're fucking feeling, right? But it honestly, it can feel that scary at times. So to like be in a space where you're feeling held and safe, and that's the whole thing, right? Like we have to turn our nervous system, turn the dial down so that we are in our zone of tolerance, so that we can even have our brains functioning to make any progress. So you definitely answered my question. And
Cool.
bringing this back to intuition, I guess once our brain is back online, we'll get our answers.
Yeah.
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 We'll be able to like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like, it allows you that space to even consider like what might be happening.
Because intuition, once again, it is a feeling based practice. And if you are scared, or if someone is scared to feel their feelings, then they are sure as hell not going to be able to tap into their sixth sense, into their intuition.
Yeah.
Right? I would make that sweeping statement. Like part of intuition is being able to feel.
Yeah.
Whether it's feeling your feelings, feeling your body, feeling your environment, feeling how your thoughts are landing, part of intuition is being able to feel. Or like, and so I would, that's the statement that I would anchor into. Yeah.
And I guess leaning into that, my next question would be starting to lean into how do we recognize intuition? And I know we're talking about it being a feeling and it's a sixth sense, but I wonder, like, for you, because again, you can't really tell us what everyone else's intuition feels like, but for your experience, what does that feel like? Does it have a sound? Does it have a look, a sensation? Like, I'm curious, how do you begin to recognize, oh, this is intuition? That's here. How do I recognize that? Big questions. Feel free to take your.
I feel like recognizing your intuition, for me, it is situation dependent. Meaning, if I am in a situation where things are feeling anxious or unsafe or uncomfortable, right? That intuitive feeling is going to be much different than if I'm in a situation that is positive and loving and joyful and exciting, right? And then to like dive even deeper, like those are two different feelings within an intuition, right? Feelings within the feelings. It's like a matrix, right? But just some like concrete things. How does it feel? For me, I notice my heart rate. I notice my breathing. I notice my body's like physical response, right? How does it physically feel? How is my body physically responding? Right? And then I also start to notice just like thoughts that are coming up in my head. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of my intuition is very thought based or like phrase based. So I will get what people call, like what people in the holistic or like hippy dippy community what they call like downloads. Like, and I have different feelings about the word downloads, right? Because that's a whole other conversation. But it's the only word that I have right now. And or I'll get like thoughts or phrases that come up for me. For me, I don't have anything like sound wise, and I don't have anything looks wise. For me, my intuition or my intuitive experience is very internal. It's very in my head, it's very in my body, and it's responding to whatever the situation is.
I guess to reframe my question, because I work from a very internal family systems lens, so I work from like parts. And so when I am working with clients, I'll oftentimes ask them, how does this shame look? What does it look like? And someone might answer, oh, it feels very tar-like. It's very sticky. It's black. It's heavy. It's in my stomach. So when I think of intuition, and when I guess what I'm saying, what might it look like? What might it sound like is more of an abstract of like, for you, what might that intuition look like if it were a physical thing? What might it sound like if it were a physical thing?
It's a great question.
Thank you.
Jen, do you want to answer that question? Because I'll answer it too.
I mean,
why not both?
well, I think I need a second. Ronnie's like, yeah, I know. Great fucking question.
Great question. I feel like my intuition, if it were physical and in front of me, it's not anything forceful. It's like sparkles that just like fall, right? Or it's like being near a bonfire, but you're not on top of the bonfire. You're like far enough away where you can like hear the crackle and like feel the warmth, but you're not on fire. Yeah. My intuition is something that's very just like, it's like a gentle, like, hey, listen. Right? So it's not like a lightning strike. It's nothing like, it's not getting pelted in the face with a snowball. For me. It's very just like, shh, it's going to be okay. Like, right?
That's amazing. Is it always something gentle? Like, even when maybe you're in a situation that is more anxiety inducing or you're feeling like it's not right, does it still feel like a soft, gentle, crackling fire, or does it transform?
Surprisingly, yes, because like my intuition can stay that way, but my body doesn't have to respond that way.
Exactly.
Right? Like my intuition is the calm guiding compass, right?
Yes.
My intuition is the calm guiding compass inside of me, right? Inside of your head, inside of you. At least this is my experience, right? It's that calm guiding little sparkle. And like your body can respond differently and your brain can respond differently, but that internal feeling, at least for me, is like, even if the situation around me is chaotic and anxiety inducing and or unsafe or something like that,
it's like a reassuring.
It's like a reassuring,
existence.
Like, hey, did you consider this? You should probably do this. Okay, now do this.
Yeah, it's like a moment of clarity. Like all the noise settles, and it just. And I talk about this a lot, and Ronnie and I kind of not butt heads, but we have different opinions on it. I'm like, you feel this joy, and Ronnie's like, not everybody does. I'm like, but for me, it's like the shimmering, like the sun reflecting off of the water, that just feels warm and holding. Like I feel that feeling even in like shit situations. Once I get my clarity, I feel like I just feel that shimmering, holding space in my heart.
For me, I think it's situational, and it's also body. So like how my body might be responding to something, because like you can know something's right for you and still be really afraid of stepping into it.
Yeah.
And like sometimes the physical bodily sensations are often louder than the intuition. So you can know, or even like there's times you and I were talking about this before, about a certain experience you're having in your personal life right now. And for me, in certain situations, it's almost like just this, like this little, like, hey, and it's like almost this just like pull. It's magnetic. It's just like unrelenting. And I just like, but I feel like my intuition is like me. so like, I feel like I am also that kind of a force. Once I am like, okay, handshake with my intuition, I am able to tap into that intuitive nature and like channel it. into whatever that endeavor is. But what mine would look like, since we all kind of shared our looks, mine I feel like is definitely in my solar plexus. It is in like my root chakra area. When I feel that intuition, it's just like that's the sensation area where I feel it. And then the similar to you said, like shimmers, and that resonated with me. But again, I think it reminds me of this, like, I don't know if it's shimmers or like, I don't know, something about that just really resonated, like this gentle type of
fairy dust, like falling,
like, almost like birds flying together. Like it's like that's kind of where my brain thought. My brain was thinking. Both of those
are collective like energy coming together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's interesting. I think as we move through our, like, and not to say that there is a path, but I feel like once we like start to like really lean into our path, like that is like this intuitive energy coming together. Almost think of like ancestral intuitive energy coming together, like lineage energy.
The other thing I want to say about intuition and like figuring out what it feels like in your body and figuring out what it would look like if you had to take it out of its abstract form and into a concrete form, something that I do think is universal across the board is that the intuition feeling tends to be easy, right? Like whether or not it's easy for us to feel it, it is sure as fuck easy to arrive.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
It's like there. Right. And like whether or not we feel it, whether or not we know it, whether or not we're scared to feel it, it's there and it shows up with ease because that's its only job. Right. Yeah. Intuition has one job: protect you. And like, I guess 2 jobs: protect you and show up with ease. Right. Like that is really what happens. So I think that. It's easy, right? It's easy. And it might not be easy to feel it, easy to see it, easy to identify it, but intuition itself is easy.
It's almost like a gentle breeze.
Does that make sense?
Like a warm breeze.
Yeah.
Not like it doesn't like it's not like rustling all the leaves, shaking everything down. It's just like, you know, when you just hear like the gentle blowing of leaves, turning something over.
Yeah.
And the thing about that I think's really, I'm really happy that you brought this up, Miriam, like making it something concrete, is even if you're feeling really anxious or depressed, if you have a thought disorder like OCD, recognizing that there can be so many things that feel very loud or heavy, submersive, you can have that little thing that feels easy pop in, even if a wave crashes onto it or something crashes down and covers it up, right? If it gets buried, when it does shine its way through, maybe that feeling we can like look for or hope to find associated with it is that brief ease. And that in itself can be scary to approach because there's no intense emotion surrounding it. And if we're like in that protection mode, if we're scanning something for danger, we're gonna turn from that because it's not what we're looking for.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It makes it like kind of links that anxiety and avoidance together a little bit with intuition of like those automatic ingrained reactions to what we're experiencing. And intuition, again, it's a sensation, we're experiencing it. So like you said, having that experience, whether we know it or not, can be dysregulating when when we have been historically treated through a society to like take that away or to take it away.
Yeah,
because it's unstructured, right? We're like trying to figure out how we're feeling, what we want to do, and we have thought maps, right? We can use Venn diagrams, all that kind of stuff. But no matter how you cut it, it's gonna be that guiding light, that feeling you're gonna get, hopefully pointing you where you want to go.
Yeah, like even this conversation alone about intuition and like trying to pinpoint how it feels and like figure it out and put it out into the community. Like, again, like we are taking something so abstract and like trying our best to talk around it and like smush it, right? And that's a good thing because like that's just what we do, right? That's just what we do.
Well, and I think this conversation is also illuminating how expansive it is. Like we cannot contain this. Like this conversation is in no way an attempt to contain this, as opposed to really allowing it to be in the space with us, allowing this to take up space, however that looks.
Is the intuition in the room with you?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely. I don't know if it's just like the field that we're in where like intuition is a buzzword, because it might be. And like a lot of times, like you can't trust yourself. I can't trust what I'm feeling because I had a bad experience that makes me think that this won't be good for me. I think that can be generalized to absolutely everyone.
Well, I think like, you know, like what comes to my mind about what you were saying is like historic gaslighting. Like historically, there has been, you know, this, like we talked about, this societal gaslighting of not trusting yourself, of needing a guru in the context of westernized gurus,
Right.
because, you know, appropriation, and like needing someone to be the professional or the expert, or needing you to be an expert before you even trust yourself. I think we confuse sometimes our innate ability to discern with this like achieved through doing or through learning or through like having to constantly like be searching for it when it's already like here. So it's like created to keep you in this loop of seeking and seeking, as opposed
Let
to
me get
looking
this
within.
next self-help book. Like I can't start my shadow work without my shadow work journal type of
Well,
thing.
think about like when people come into therapy, they come into this space, or even maybe with you might see this sometimes. People come in expecting us to be experts or to tell them how to do things or what to do, and like how we can never tell you how to live your life or what moves to make or what, you know, like that is not the role, but that's what's been sold.
For me as a yoga therapist, I feel like I have a very unique set of clientele that comes my way. And when I speak about the clientele that I'm about to speak about, I am not referring to my PHP clients. I'm not referring to my IOP or my inpatient.
Not like patients.
Not like patients and or clients in a legitimate like hospital clinical setting, right? I'm talking about people who
like private.
I'm talking about like private clientele who have found me on their own, or I have found them on my own, and they are seeking yoga therapy, right? For whatever reason. So in that context, I feel like I have a very unique experience, because when people find yoga therapy, they typically come to me at their wit's end. They're like, I've done these things. I've done this. I've read this book. I've done this therapy. I've seen these professionals. I've tried these things, and I don't know what the fuck works and like what's going on. And so now I have you, because what I do know is that yoga makes me feel good, and you're a yoga therapist, and you're going to like band-aid my whole life together. And and like in the same vein as what you just said, Ronnie, what I have to do within the first session is like, hey, so like yoga therapy uses yoga and its principles to help guide you in a more holistic, health-driven, like holistic health, mindful life direction. And the biggest pillar of that is self-reflection. Like the biggest tenet of yoga is the ability to reflect inwards.
And that's the scariest part for so many people.
And so like when you come see me as a yoga therapist, like we're gonna self-reflect because yoga asks it of us. Eastern philosophy asks it of us. Eastern philosophy, specifically Buddhism, teaches that like you're the one in control of most shit in your life. So so like
so you can't like,
so like I'm glad that you came this way. I'm glad that we are working together. I will do everything in my power to provide you with the resources and tools and the unpacking of whatever we need to unpack, like within a safe and controlled manner. Though if you are not willing to self-reflect, and you're not willing to equally like tune in and do the work, and also recognize that I myself am not, like as your yoga therapist, I'm not a superhero, then like I don't know what to do. Right. And like part of being a yoga therapist is helping people tune into their intuition, but a lot of it is the ability to self-reflect and recognize their own role in their own healing process and their own healing journey, right?
Yeah.
Community or sangha is one of the pillars, right, of yoga, right? If someone says like, oh, like I'm part of a sangha, that's the Sanskrit word for gathering or community. But another pillar is svadhyaya, which is self-study, right? So you have this duality of svadhyaya, which is self-study, and sangha, which is community. And svadhyaya is the entirety, is like the absolute core of yoga therapy. And so like could we even connect self-study at like, could connecting with your intuition be part of self-study? Right? Part of your self-study is connecting with your intuition.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
It's like
as
meeting yourself.
Yeah. Meeting yourself for sure. For sure.
And I want to circle back to a quote from one of our first meetings that Miriam had said, and just kind of like read that aloud and let you both kind of hear that. So you said, come into the world with intuition, early life experiences snuff it out or help it grow. It is up to you to take the reins and stumble through it, figure it out yourself. The only way is through, and no one can tell you how to read your intuition. It's you versus you, because it is within you.
Yeah.
And like, I think that just perfectly sums what the first part up to this point of this conversation has really outlined, is this.
Yeah.
So like,
Stunning. It's speechless.
Yeah.
Wait, it's so funny. This is like technically our second time talking about it, right? Because we had like this intro conversation, and I remember this is the point where I was like, okay, magic is gonna happen. And it's so funny because we just took 52 minutes to get to the essence of what our last conversation was. And that's a good thing. I love that we're philosophically diving in and like teasing apart and pulling out more and more, because we're uncovering more and more about this like intuitive knowing and what it's like. And I really think that the best way to learn about intuition is hearing others talk about their connection to to it. Because like it's not right, like what is it? It's not
And this is the like third time we've done this shit.
I think it like, again, I think this is, again, the vision that I had was like these three beings weaving this thing. And I think that's what we're like, I think that's what this is like. And what I also think is the fact that talking about and connecting with community allows us to tap into that together. Like, can our intuition also be a community experience? Like, yes, it is in you, but can it also be within us? Like, is there a way for us to strengthen these like intuitive connections, these bonds or these forces, these muscles, whatever you want to call them, with each other? And I would say yes. And I would say that I have numerous relationships within my life that I feel as though once we came together, it heightened or strengthened not only my self-trust of like, you know, embarking on a relationship and like leaning in and like, you know, learning through that relationship, but it strengthens that inner intuition, not only with myself, but I feel like with my peers. Like, I trust your intuition. My intuition trusts your intuition, and vice versa. Does that all make sense? Anyone have any thoughts?
Like a mirror is being held, a two-sided mirror is being held up in between each other's heart spaces. And it's like reflecting through and back toward each other is how I'm imagining it.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost think of like this gentle hand strumming down. Like, I imagine like these like energy tendrils kind of between the mirrors, and just like a little like the intuition just being like a little like strum of a hand, almost like when you like strum a guitar, just this like reverberation that's like doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and it's like tugging on both your little strings.
When you first said this, I did not think of something beautiful and shared. I thought of something with my twin sister. So before we could speak, we had our intuition to communicate, and we actually have memories of this feeling, and that stuck with us. It's still with us like our whole lives. But there's moments like we were in sus situations, and our hearts, like we just connected and knew, like that moment that you have with someone when you're like, we got to get out of here. I think that's also our intuition speaking.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Protection.
Yeah. Like I said, your intuition has two jobs. It's to protect you, and then also to
be soft.
To be easy,
Just
right?
be
To be easy and to protect you, right? And like we were saying, I think that like whatever sus situation you found yourself in, yeah, that situation probably had your body react in a certain way, but your intuition was easy and immediate and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Absolutely.
had a mirror who was able to affirm that. Like, because yes, we can self-affirm, but I think there's something so strong about being able to like look at your peer or someone with whom you like have and just being like, oh shit, like, yeah, like, okay, like whether it's a positive or unpleasant experience, like I can attest to, I think last year, within our personal friendship type of lives, there was a lot of intuitive experiencing happening within our own selves relationally. And I truly do believe that through those community connections, I was able to lean even more into that intuition and just like be like, oh shit, like, yeah, okay, writing's on the wall. Like, it's all like everybody's bells are ringing.
It's like that. So this is the thing. Validation is what I'm thinking of. Like, it's validating, so it feels right. But is that actually what's happening here? Because that's the easy answer, but it's also a pathologized answer to need to rely on someone to have that trust.
Well, I think there's duality there. I feel like we're strengthened through our community. Like, why? Like, I don't think that our intuition only has to be a singular endeavor, nor does it become less valuable because I looked to a peer and saw that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that takes away from the inherent value of it.
I would sum it up this way. I think your intuition starts and begins as an individual endeavor, right? It begins as an individual thing. And then as you meet your crew, as you connect with like-minded people and like-minded souls, then you all start to kind of like ping pong off of each other in a way. But I firmly believe that like it begins with just you. Intuition is locked in just in your own internal experience. And then as you start to expand, as your life expands, your intuition expands, right? As your community grows, your intuition grows. And it's that, your intuition is that thing that tells you what situations are safe and what situations are not safe. But it's also that thing that, like, if you're really close with someone, you can be like, I'm going to reach out to Ronnie today. I feel like they might not be doing well. And then you text Ronnie and you're like, Ronnie, I feel like you're not doing well. Are you okay? And then Ronnie's like, no, bitch, I'm actually not doing well. Right. And you're like, okay, cool. Right. So I feel like your intuition, it starts individually. And then as it strengthens and grows, as you're flexing that intuition muscle, it becomes stronger to not only act for yourself, but act for others. Does that make sense?
But like, think about like, girl, like if we really think about it that way, then because like, yes, we heal in community, but like also like some of that like individual work is like like you said, to strengthen that. It makes me think of like, I keep thinking of like telephone like pole, like, like signals being sent almost. It's like your signal's not like that strong, and then it's like as it can reach more, or like almost like this, like a tapestry came to mind, or like almost like a woven type of cloth that's just like not exactly together, but just like this, it can touch more. You're able to have more capacity for
like a wider net.
Because no, you're good.
I'm thinking of the individual and then how it's strengthened with our community. I'm thinking about a star and the planets in its orbit, and how like you need that energy. And I don't know if we help the sun at all, but I think it's a beautiful analogy to think about. It's like you welcome the people into your circle, into your orbit that feel right, and it makes you stronger, makes your light shine stronger. And also like yes, we seek validation from others. If you're seeking validation from people who feel good for you, or even someone who feels shitty, you know the difference. Your intuition tells you, I don't know. This person and I see eye to eye on everything, but I don't know if I would do it this way. And you could meet a stranger and see how they're handling something and be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And you have no idea.
Yeah.
But your intuition knows.
Yeah, it makes me think of like wisdom, and then I think of like elders, because I think like there's the way where we can be maladaptive, like trying to get validation for everything. Like you need to plug into multiple people all of the time about it's like this inability to actually sit with and process that by yourself and like listen to your own self about the matter. Like you have to like outsource that versus like this almost tuning in and turning on to like when I'm looking for validation, I'm looking for like typically either like people who are my like peers who I think are at the same like vibration as me, or I'm looking for someone whose vibration is fast like farther than mine. I'm looking for an elder. I'm looking for wisdom. I'm looking for something just, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Like looking for wisdom, like not that I don't have it, but like I trust in the wisdom of my elders. I trust in the wisdom of those who have been with their intuition longer because they've been alive longer.
Yeah. When I think,
or not everyone has to be alive longer.
Yeah. When I think of intuition and like learning how to trust it and learning how to hear it, I think of, and like, I don't know how many stories of this exist, but I do know that there are countless stories of people who like feel as though something is medically wrong with them. And then they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, well, we ran all your blood work and it's fine. You're fine. Mm-hmm. And then the person leaves and like, no, like something's fucking wrong. Yeah. Something's actually wrong. And then they go to another doctor and they're like, no, you're fine. And then they don't give up and they keep going and keep going and keep going. And then suddenly something does come up, right? Mm-hmm. It like, there are countless stories like that.
Yeah.
Of people who are like, and that's just like one type of situation where people have trusted their intuition.
Yeah.
Right? Like people who like I don't know, are like feeling off in some way, but they can't pinpoint why, but they know that something is like medically not correct. And they go and they don't get their answers, but they keep going until that answer is found. Now, I don't mean go until an answer is found, like where we cross over into like what hypochondriac or Munchausen by proxy. Yes. I don't mean that. I mean someone who's like, no, like there's like a maybe like a familial line of something of concern, right? Mm-hmm. And then like a blood test shows that they have this diagnosis, or an MRI shows that something actually is there, right? It's those situations where
like their body, the white blood cells, something was picking up on illness was developing before it was detectable, and they trusted whatever that ping was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there are countless scenarios of people like that. Mm-hmm. And that's just like another example for intuition.
Yeah. I'm wondering, just going back to validation one more time, that's again another buzzword. Is there another word we can be using for what we're talking about here? With
seeking counsel comes to mind.
Seeking counsel.
Yeah.
It's a form of strengthening your intuition, strengthening your knowledge. You're fact checking. You're getting your resource list together.
I think okay, this is gonna make. I'm going back to an earlier episode, season 1, gossip. It almost, and this isn't gossip necessarily, but I think that sometimes these things can become shamed societally, like going and getting validation. Like it's like you have to be very independent. We live in a westernized culture where there's hyper independence. There is a lot of these ideas of like you have to go it alone, and I think that's just inherently wrong. There's value in it, but it is not the only way to get somewhere. And there's power in seeking counsel. There's power in community. There's power in having elders to turn to. There's power in being able to be with community when making decisions. And not everybody has, and there's privilege in it, I would say, to have elders and people with whom you can turn to and have that. which is why I think community becomes so much more powerful when we are able to have access to it. And so yes, there could be a different word, but I also think it's like, let's take back validation a little bit, in the sense of like, it's okay to seek validation. There's a reason why people do, but there's the duality with everything of like, when am I, let's go back to the, fall equinox, taking too much or giving too much? How am I balancing these things?
Yeah. Things that are coming up for me regarding intuition and seeking community versus seeking validation, it's striking that balance of those two words that I already said, svadhyaya, which is self-study, versus sangha, which is community, right? Can we strike the balance between self-study and knowing yourself and looking inward and trusting what is true and what you know for you, and then also bouncing off of our trusted sangha, right? Sangha is that like-minded, soul-bonded, soul-tied inner circle, right? You're not, I don't mean just like willy-nilly community. Did you just give me like eyebrows over here?
I gave the viewers
eyebrows. Right. And like sangha is that like-minded, soul-tied inner circle community. And like I said prior, intuition is that inner knowing that starts in as an individual spark or individual glow. And then as you start to reach outwards, then your intuition grows as your community grows. So I think part of it is really finding that sweet spot. Wow. Sweet spot between svadhyaya and sangha, self-study and community. But it has to start with self-study. Yeah. Right. You can't just like
self-study too.
Yeah. Yeah. I would argue to say that you can't start with community. Like, how are you going to involve your intuition and your inner knowing in community if you're not tapped into yourself?
Yeah.
In my Eastern philosophy course in college, we read this book, The Art of Communication, and it talked about communicating with yourself and holding things for yourself, because as soon as something is shared, it's susceptible to judgment, and if you don't know where you're at with that yet, you're going to take on the judgment as your own feeling and your own perception of the experience.
Yes.
I wish I remembered like what school of like knowledge this comes from.
We can reference that book. We'll put it into our resources list, so that followers and people can look into that a little bit more deeply. Yeah. But
I think another resource book that should be listed then is the Yamas and Niyamas.
Absolutely.
Because that has a whole section on svadhyaya and self-study, because it's one of them, right? Svadhyaya is one of the Yamas and Niyamas. So that book is going to be really helpful for viewers or listeners as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do want to circle back and say that part of me doesn't think that self-study needs to come first. And the only reason why I say that is because we do live in such a culture that brainwashes or pushes the ideals of disconnecting with that energy, that I think it really can sometimes take stepping into a community space where there are people who are in relationship to their intuition, who are able to reflect back some like mirror of authenticity, some mirror. Because like when I think of Mud and Lotus Yoga Center, I think of stepping into a space where I'm met with teachers who are steps ahead of me on their teaching journey in some ways. And I think we all have different, like the staff at the studio, I would say, all has their own things where they might be steps ahead of the other staff. But as a student coming into that space, without maybe being tapped into my intuition, because again, this could be, maybe it's there, but I'm not tapped into it. So I'm showing up to this space just to take a class, but I leave with a sparkle, a shimmer,
like a little dusting.
I see a little, like it gives you the opportunity, because what do? We sit in Shavasana at the end of class, which is an invitation to be with yourself, to marinate in the practice. And that in and of itself, I think is so valuable. So I am thinking it from a space where that is centered. But I do believe in the power of community. So I always want to circle back, and I don't want people to feel disheartened or, you know, I think there's different ways of doing things, but
Yeah.
like I would invite you to go to spaces like that. Like, yeah.
It's an excellent example. Yeah.
Really great example. I'm from that perspective of things. And I'm sure that we all have our own version of this, right? As a studio owner, as a yoga therapist, as a yoga teacher, this is my version of it. I'm sure that both of you have your versions of this. As counselors, as holistic professionals, like in the yoga room, it's very easy to tell who is tuned into themselves and who is not by one simple question. If you give the students 90 seconds to do whatever they want on their mat and the student is frozen, right? If you say to a room full of students, hey, we're going to take 2 minutes to just move intuitively. There's the word, right? We're going to take 2 minutes to freestyle, right? I've been in Ronnie's class. They give us 5 whole minutes to freestyle, right? Right? But like, we're going to take 2 minutes to, or like, here's some popular phrases. Take 2 minutes to do what your body needs. Take 2 minutes to take care of yourself, however that looks for you.
Complete your practice.
Take 2 minutes to complete your practice. Take 2 minutes to, like tie any loose ends. Take 2 minutes to move intuitively, breathe organically. And then you will have students in the room who are frozen, utterly frozen. And that's how you know, as a holistic professional, maybe this person has like never been asked that before.
Yeah,
right? Like maybe they simply just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe they simply just honestly don't know what to do. And they're like, damn, I've never been asked that before and I just don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Or they are not as tuned in to their inner needs, their inner knowing, their inner wisdom, their inner trust in themselves. That's like the key giveaway in my perspective. And I'm curious to know if either of you have like a key giveaway in your professions.
Well, we're naturally, as therapists, it's a talking profession.
Yeah.
So I see talking going on and on, subject to subject, without a breath or with a tiny breath, the shoulders rising, the eye contact distance somewhere else. That tells me that there's a big disconnect from the cognitive experience and the current lived experience. And then also the exact opposite is where people may show up and have nothing to say, but they don't want to leave. And they want to try to be in the space, but they don't know what to do. And they don't necessarily want to hear me speak either. It's just that. So it's hyper and hypo arousal is what I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ronnie?
I would say, like, again, working from the lens of like parts work, I might ask where my, like, what, when you think of this thing, insert whatever thing, where do you like, do you feel any sensations? Do you notice, like, when I ask that question of like, what might it look like? What might it sound like? Where are you feeling it in your body? What emotions are coming up? What thoughts are coming up? And there is, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's like a usually an immediate answer. So I'm like, you don't have to know immediately. Like, let's sit with it. When I notice there's little space between the question and answer, and then like not being able to like kind of go inward, because like IFS is like this it's internal family system. So we're going inwards, and oftentimes it'd be really helpful to like draw the thing. So if you were in a session, I'd like, draw your intuition for me, and we'd sit there and it externalizes this thing so we can kind of view it. And you'll notice this dichotomy of like people who are really connected and are able to be like, oh, this is what it would look like, this is what it would feel like, this is what the job it would want to do if it wasn't doing this. Like, they're able to really like be in connection with themselves and like call that intuition, call it knowing, whatever. But seeing that gives me really a lot of insight about how developed that internal relationship is, or that internal view is. But all of that to be said, I feel like we really covered a lot here.
This conversation could just
We could keep
oh
keep
my,
it
it
on.
could just go on
And
and on.
while I love that, I don't want
It's gonna
to
go on and on.
I don't want to. I want to allow people space to really absorb all the beautiful, like, juicy bits that we have really laid out here today.
Yeah.
So, like, I appreciate you, circling back with that question.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting it.
Thanks for receiving it. Thanks for receiving it.
So
I'm curious. I have an intention that just came to mind, an affirmation to send us all off with. Would we like to do the affirmation before or after we all come together and retouch into our intuition and see if it feels any different after seeping in for a while talking about it? Receive or seep in? How are we feeling? If you want to reconnect with your intuition, place your hand on your heart and do a couple more of those cleansing breaths. So breathing in through your nose, exhaling forcefully out your mouth. And the last breath, exhale through pursed lips. Sit with the stillness. My intuition feels reluctant to disconnect from this connection that we're all sharing right now.
I was just envisioning like little flames. Like that's what it was they went from like these little like light beings to like this little
Fire.
Embers. Yeah.
My intuition also feels pretty reluctant to step away because I feel like there's like it's just one of those topics where you can just peel back and peel back and peel back. But my intuition is also like really, I'm very phrase based sometimes, and the phrase in my head was like, "You go, girl." Like we just did this thing. Like we just did this podcast. Like we just put this out here, and it's gonna land with people, and it's gonna and it's a resource to put forward. Yeah. There's like a whole other slice of this pie of like intuition and how it relates to like divine femininity and like women and women identifying individuals and like female bodies, right? There's like that whole other slice of the pie that like we can't even get into right now.
Teaser.
But like
not right now, but after dark.
Yeah. There's like because like at one point in history, like women and divine feminine energy were said to be like the intuition keepers, right? And that in and of itself is a whole other conversation that like we just can't have
right now.
But like stay tuned, maybe.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think what our intuition is telling us, or at least what I'm thinking mine is telling me and what I'm hearing echoed is this conversation is not yet done. And I think that we will be having not a part 2 necessarily, but we will be embarking on another conversation where we will be talking about intuitive practices and especially applied to people with womb spaces or with, different bodily experiences that are aligned with that.
Yeah, because like what this felt like today was like, what is intuition? How does it come up for you? How does it, like, how can we go from abstract to concrete? How does intuition affect yourself? How does it affect your community, right? This was very just like introduction to intuition.
Yeah,
like we haven't even gotten into like intuitive practices.
Yeah.
No,
we haven't.
Yeah.
So I guess with today, we're at the place of starting to notice what it feels like. Big thing from season 1, willingness. Right.
Yeah.
So the affirmation that I thought of is also actually it's my summary of what we talked about today, and I'm just going to make it an affirming summary. Today I am willing to allow my trust to be unstructured.
It makes me think of when we talked about stepping into that fear, that abstract place of the ambiguity. And this is like that stepping into ambiguity, but like more gentle, like more like stepping into abstractness, stepping into that letting it be unstructured.
Yeah, by saying like there is no structure for it, let it be unstructured. It's creating that guidance that all of us have learned that we like need to function and go in a direction, right? So here it is. Cast your net wide. you don't even need to catch a single thing. The net doesn't need to move. Job done. See what happens. Yeah. And then, Miriam, could you just provide us with a little tidbit, something to put in our back pockets for community and self-study that we can hold on to?
I would say that like you cannot have self-study without your community. You cannot have your community without self-study. Like they go hand in hand. Yeah. They are taught yogically hand in hand for a reason. And so I like something that I would recommend everyone do is have some type of self-study practice. And that can be whatever that allows you to tap inwards, whether that is a mindful walk with no headphones, how we started this conversation, right? Or whether that, or maybe you're like a journaling baddie and you're just like constantly like free writing and letting it all come out. And then I would also recommend like tapping into some form of community, right? Because these two things go hand in hand. And when they are together, that is when we have the strongest intuition, because we are, it's a little Lotus mudra, right?
Wow.
Self-study and sung together. Oh, that's so cute. For our people who are just listening, we just did Padma mudra. It's where you have your palms facing each other. Then you're going to take the heels of your palms together and then connect the like pinkies and then connect your thumbs, but not like the tips of them, like the sides of them. Yeah. And then allow your other fingers to kind of outstretch wide. And this is Lotus mudra or Padma or Padma mudra. Yeah. And typically you can use this like to fill your cup. So like you could like inhale and lift your arms all the way up like you're filling your cup, whatever you're filling it with, like abundance, health, wealth, whatever you're calling in. And then as you exhale, you can turn your palms inwards and allow your fingers to point down and then welcome that into your body. Welcome that into your being. So like inhaling, filling whatever that is, and then exhaling, allowing that to seep into your being. So maybe it's like inhaling self-study, exhaling community.
I love that.
Yeah.
Inhaling the bravery to look inward, exhaling the comfort of having my loved ones to sit in that with.
There you go. Yeah. It's like a duality thing. Yeah.
Inhaling trust, exhaling intuition.
Inhaling your trust, exhaling the need for structure.
Yeah.
Letting that go.
I always like to end my yoga classes with bringing hands to third eye center and then opening the palms to receive any energy that you want to take in. So I think like similarly to this, it's like breathing that in, exhaling it out is really entering is the invite, and the exhale is like you're closing the doors.
You could also think inhale is self-study, exhale is community. Inhale is svadhyaya because you're welcoming it inwards. Exhale is your community, is your sangha because you're breathing it out.
Yeah, like what you're putting back out. The energy that you're putting out. I always picture the energy on the exhale is like what you're releasing, whether it's intention for your community or things that you're releasing that you want to let go of, you don't want to be holding on to anymore.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing with community is that they're there we'll always be there. Your loved ones, us virtually are here for you to receive whatever you need to give.
The Field Guide community, the Mud and Lotus community.
Yeah, the Mud and Lotus community.
So all that
this is
to be
feeling
said.
complete.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be on this cute little podcast. I'm so like honored to be here, but also just like so proud of you both and like what you are building and like what you're cultivating. Likewise. Thanks for getting me in on the ground level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those of you who are here and local, definitely check out Mud and Lotus. We have them linked to our post. Check out their page, give them some love, and go there and like receive some love. Like you could come and hang out with me. You can come and hang out with Mir.
Yeah.
But yeah, would love to see you there. And on that note, as we bid you a farewell, self-awareness is your compass guiding you back to your center. Understanding your own rhythms is a truth strength to help you navigate your emotions and your reactions.
Join us next time as we dive deeper into the human experience. Until then, breathe, find balance, and know that you're not alone on this journey.
Love this episode? Share it with a friend who wants to ride the waves of awareness with us. And don't forget to, like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and, hopefully tune in for the next one.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in. Stay mindful, stay present, and keep exploring that extraordinary world within. And until then, we'll catch you on the trails.
Catch you on the trails.
Oh, that was so cute.
I was like,
Say